Hey everyone, my name is DanielTarinelli. Welcome everyone watching on YouTube. Today I wanted to go over anyone in the automotive industry, how to handle a bad credit lead. People with not the best credit, they do put in a ton of internet leads. They also call into the dealership a lot too. So if you're in sales, if you're in the automotive industry, you need to know how to handle this lead. There are a good amount of people in this country right now with not the best credit. Doesn't mean that they don't deserve a car or they can't afford a car payment as well. So you want to be able to handle this lead properly. Here at the office of Seventh Call, we deal with a lot of leads with people with not the best credit. A couple tips to go over with somebody with not the best credit is number one, you expect to make more than one appointment. So we found with calling these leads with bad credit, they may say they're going to come in, a couple days from the time we make contact, and they never show up. It doesn't mean that they bought a car already or they're just flat out not interested. It just means that they got tied up or they just don't think they can get approved. So it's important that when you have this conversation with this person that put in an internet lead or they call in, you need to make it as positive as possible because they've either been denied before in the last 30 days, they've been denied in the last year. It just depends, people's perception of bad credit is different. When I was selling cars, somebody would come in, and I'm sure people watching this in the automotive industry can relate. Somebody would come in and say, oh, I got bad credit. You show them a vehicle or maybe you go right for the credit app and then you find out that they're a 650 or a 660 credit score. So for some people, that means they have bad credit. But if anyone's working in a dealership in a bad credit area, they know a 650 or 660 credit score, that's a car deal all day long. So you want to make sure you also ask the qualifying questions, okay? So number one, expect to set more than one appointment for them. Don't be afraid to follow up with them when they don't show up for their appointment. They may stop answering you for the day of their appointment. You definitely want to keep calling them and ensure that they come into the dealership. And also number two is you want to ask qualifying questions, but you want to stay away from the down payment question. So I've heard so many salespeople answer a sales call and somebody says, oh, I don't have that best of credit. And the first thing they ask, which you do not want to do not ask this question unless you absolutely have to. And I'm going to go into detail of the qualifying questions that you need to ask before you ask this question, and that is, how much of a down payment do you have? So you need to understand something. When somebody's calling into your dealership or they put in that lead online, they may not have physically seen a car. They may not know exactly what they want. Even though they may have bad credit, they're still not going to pay for something that they don't want. So until they've actually seen a vehicle, until they've sat down and driven it, right? And then you've actually showed them a realistic way to purchase the vehicle, that's when you should be asking for money down. You want to try to avoid this question at all costs. Now, I know salespeople do this because they don't want to waste their time. They don't want to have somebody come into the dealership and they can't buy a car. So I'm going to give you the qualifying way when somebody calls in or if they put an internet lead to ask them these questions and to bring them in without ever mentioning if they have money down. Basically, you don't even want to talk about it. In an ideal situation, you want to just bring them in to come see you so you have the ability to sell them a car, okay? So, customer calls in. They say, I have bad credit. The first thing you need to say is, no matter what dealership you're working at, a lot of dealerships work with these subprime banks. The very next thing you need to say is, hey, that's no problem. We have a great credit rebuilding program here at the dealership. Is it okay if I ask you a couple questions to see if you qualify? It's the same thing that I've trained on before. If you've been watching these YouTube videos, it goes into the 4 parts. You want to use intent and you want to ask them permission to see if they qualify. You call an internet lead, right? And somebody picks up the phone. Hey, this is Bob from XYZ dealership. Just want to see what you wanted to accomplish in your next vehicle. Oh, I got bad credit. The very next thing you need to say is, hey, that's no problem. The dealership has a great credit rebuilding program here. Would it be okay if I asked you a couple questions to see if you qualify? That's the very next thing you need to say, okay? More than 85, 90%, over 95%, they're going to say, yeah, that's no problem. Go ahead, ask me a couple questions. They're going to be interested in the credit rebuilding program, okay? People with bad credit, what do they want to do? They want to rebuild their credit, right? They want to increase their score. Nobody with bad credit wants to stay at having bad credit. So if you can position the whole call into rebuilding their credit, that's going to create interest, and they're going to be more excited to actually come down to the dealership. Okay? So one of the very first questions I like to ask is, are you currently working, or are you retired, or do you get any disability or other income? You want to figure out what they do for work, okay? So I worked in the subprime industry for the first 3 years, my automotive industry. I learned a ton about subprime finance, and when banks are looking to loan, they like to loan money for people that have steady income and steady employment. They like to see that somebody's been at their job for a while. So the very first thing I want to ask them is, okay, hey, so what do you do for work? Or are you currently retired? Do you get Social Security? What's the income source? Okay, you want to figure out what the income source is for that individual, okay? So let's say they tell you, they're a nurse, or maybe they're a cook, or, they do landscaping or whatever. You want to ask them, okay, can you prove this income? Do you get pay stubs? If they get pay stubs, that's great. You're on your way to getting that appointment and actually having a real opportunity to sell a vehicle. If they say they do not get pay stubs, the very next question you need to ask, especially in a bad credit situation, is, okay, do you put the money in your bank every time? Okay? If they do put the money in their bank every time, you want to make sure they've been at that job for at least 3 months. Okay? And then ask them, okay, do you think you consistently put that money in the bank for the last 90 days? If they have, you're on your way to setting an appointment and bringing them in, okay? If they do not, okay, if you have somebody that has a bad credit situation and they can't necessarily prove their income, the very next thing you want to say, and this is what you want to get into the habit of doing, even if you do think they qualify without asking for a down payment, is you want to use the buddy system, okay? What I mean by using the buddy system is, hey, do you have a friend or family member that might be willing to co-sign for you that you can bring along just in case? Get into the habit of asking that every time somebody tells you they have bad credit. Get into the habit of using that buddy system. Hey, do you have a friend or family member that might be willing to co-sign for you when you come in tomorrow at 4 p.m., okay? So ask them if they work, if they have a job, if they can prove their income, okay? If they have a job and they can prove their income, they get pay stubs, you want to ask them, okay, how long have you been there, okay? For a general rule of thumb, bare minimum, I would probably use 3 months. There are some dealerships they may work at where, 30 days of steady employment, they might be able to get something done. I would use 3 months. More than likely, though, you'll need more than 3 months. You probably need 2 years of continuous employment. So if someone's been at their job for 5 years, that's a good sign, okay? If they have pay stubs and they've been at their job for more than 5 years, that's a really good sign, okay? So steady employment is what you really want to be looking for when you're on the phone with these bad credit customers, okay? So the next thing that you want to go into is, once you figure out they have a job and they can prove their income, is, do you plan on trading anything, or you just want to add a vehicle to the household? So the next thing you want to do is, after you've determined that they work and they can prove their income, you want to determine the trade-in situation, okay? You want to figure out if they have a trade. If they do, the very next question you need to ask them is, do you owe money on that trade, or is it paid off, okay? If they owe money on the trade, you just ask them if they've made the payments on time, okay? So if you got somebody that says they have bad credit, but they can prove their income, okay, and they made the payments on time, you could be a little bit more kind of specific and ask them how long they had the vehicle, and if they had it 2 years, you definitely bring them in. But if you want to be really aggressive and just get people in front of you and increase your chances of selling a car, because I promise you, if you get them in the dealership and they find a vehicle that they love and they've only had the car a year and they're $8,000 upside down, they'll be more likely to find a co-signer to help them cover that negative equity to get them into a vehicle. So definitely keep that in mind. If they've made the payments on time, I would just bring them in the door. Hey, listen, you work, you can prove your income, you've made the payments on time. I think you may qualify for our credit rebuilding program. The only thing that we would need to do is just appraise your vehicle. That's going to be a big portion of if this deal is going to make sense or not. 80% of the value is actually in how the vehicle drives. So we need you to come in to verify all of that. When would be a good time for you to come in, today or tomorrow? Okay, so that was a scenario where somebody called in or they put in an internet lead. They said they had bad credit. And instead of you or the typical salesperson saying, well, how much do you got down? Or what's your credit score? Do not ask them what their credit score is. Do not ask them if they have a down payment, because it doesn't matter whatsoever, okay? You want to bring them in the door, but you want to obviously not waste your time, right? I completely understand that. I don't train my reps to just bring on everybody, because it wastes everybody's time. Not only does it waste the customer's time, but it wastes the sales manager's time and the salesperson's time to bring somebody in there when they have no business and there's no way that they can get them approved, okay? So figure out if they work, figure out if they can improve their income, figure out if they have a trade, okay? If you do these three things, and if they made the payments on time, if they have a trade, then you want to bring them in. Now, if the person does work and they do prove their income, but they don't have a trade, okay? Again, I'm going to say, if they do work, if they can prove their income, and they do not have a trade, the very next thing that you want to ask them is, have you ever financed a vehicle before? Have you ever financed a vehicle before? If they say yes, the very next thing you need to say is, what was the outcome of that vehicle you financed? What you're doing here is you're digging to see if there's any previous repos, okay? You're digging to see if they have any previous repos. If they do have a repo, and it's less than 2 years, then you'd want to say, would you have any, what would be the most amount of money you could put down to help you out? This is the only time I would ask for a down payment, is if the customer stated they have had a repo, but before that, I would actually ask them, do you have anyone that'd be willing to co-sign for you to get you into the vehicle that you really love? And then finally, if they don't have a co-signer, I would just ask them, how much were you planning on putting down? I would not ask them, do you have any money down? You want to assume that since they have a repo and it was less than 2 years, you want to assume that they already know that they need to put money down, okay? So you want to just go ahead and ask them, how much were you planning on putting down, okay? This is if they've gotten a repo. And the best way to find that out, if they don't want to tell you, is if they don't have anything they want to trade, have you financed a vehicle in the past? No, I have not, okay? Well, that means they're part of the first-time car buyers program, and then you can get them in the credit rebuilding program too. These are programs that you say to internet leads and incoming calls to create interest. You can even go a next step and say, hey, we're running this promotion for the rest of the month to create a little bit more urgency. You want to get these people involved on the call and involved on the internet lead. So if you got somebody with a repo, you want to figure out if they have anyone that could co-sign for them. If they do not have a co-signer and a repo, then, so you want to avoid the down payment question at all costs, but obviously you don't want to waste your time, right? Person states they have a repo, they don't have a co-signer, then you want to ask them, how much money were you planning on putting down? And then a lot of people will say, well, how much do I need to put down? Well, banks typically like to see 20%. In a repo situation, 30% is really ideal. Were you looking for, something used, pre-owned? I'm looking for something pre-owned, okay? Are you looking for around a $10,000 vehicle, $15,000? Are you looking to accomplish a certain payment? I'm looking to accomplish a $300 monthly payment. Well, that's about, 20 grand, maybe even a little bit more, especially in a bad credit situation. That'd be about $6,000 as a down payment. Was that what you were planning on putting down? No, okay, well, what were you planning on putting down? Oh, I actually had $2,000. So then the customer still has $2,000 down. Somebody with a repo has $2,000 down. I'm going to bring them in. There's a lot of dealerships in the U.S. that work with banks that actually will give out loans if there's a previous repo. So if somebody got $2 grand down, I would definitely bring them in. I would get them excited about a vehicle. They may still need a co-signer, but you still work the deal, okay? So that is how you're going to be able to get somebody from bad credit into your showroom door and give you a real opportunity to sell a vehicle. Remember, job, income. If they have a trade, Make sure they made the payments on time, okay? There's a lot of manufacturer banks that will actually give you a better rate or a tier bump or an extra incentive. If you've made the payments on time at that manufacturer, that's a huge, huge deal. You can even get them excited about it. Say, oh my God, you've made the payments on time. We got this great manufacturer lender incentive going on right now. Listen, we may be able to get you qualified for a credit rebuilding program. It's just going to be based on what that trade's worth. Remember, and when somebody asks you on the phone, what's my trade worth? Ballpark. I won't hold you to it. Just give me a ballpark value. You want to say this. Guys, our pre-owned buyers make their decision on the price. 80% of that is on how the vehicle drives. So what I mean by that, Mr. Customer, is 80% of the value of your trade that you're driving right now is solely based on how it drives. So I wouldn't feel comfortable giving you a value over the phone. I can't jump through the phone and drive your trade for you. I'm going to need you to bring it down, have somebody get in the vehicle and drive it. Then they'll be able to give you the most accurate appraisal. That's going to be the #1 factor in seeing if you qualify for our credit rebuilding program. So if you're in a dealership right now, it's slow, the showroom's empty, you want to get in front of more people, stop complaining, use these qualification methods that I just went over, get people in front of you, sell them a car, dig deep, ask for a cosigner, use the buddy system. Even if they do qualify, hey, would you have anybody, family member or friend, that would be willing to cosign for you if needed to get you into the perfect vehicle. Get them to visualize what that perfect vehicle is. So you need to understand, even people with bad credit, they don't want to pay for something that they don't like. You got to remember that. You can't just say, oh, well, you got bad credit, you got to take this vehicle. If they've got repos, that means that even if they did like a car, they didn't make a payment on the car that they did like. What makes you think they're going to make a payment on a car that they don't necessarily love? So you got to keep that in mind. So get them excited about a vehicle. Again, my name is DanielTarinelli. This is how to handle a bad credit lead. Go to the 7th Call YouTube channel, subscribe. I'm going to be doing these videos daily. Hope this video helps. Like, share the video. Again, this is DanielTarinelli. Have a great day.